facing a grave new threat. We don't know where it came from. We do know that it brings suffering and death, and has unleashed the destructive forces of fear now tearing at the very fabric of society.
People are dying, cut the red tape! People are dying, cut the red tape! People are dying, cut the red tape!
And now am I free to go to the dentist, and am I free to bring my children to the dentist?
I'm afraid that I'm going to get it from casual contact.
I mean, what if somebody gets cut in her school and they happen to have it?
Someone could take the test and not even know if they have it.
A 3-year-old child suspected of having AIDS in Sydney, Australia, doesn't understand why she was kept away from her classmates.
In the history of AIDS organizing, people are using civil disobedience. People are so desperate that they are going to break the law to get the message across.
Nations, their economies, and even their international relations are already beginning to feel the impact of this new enemy of public health. The enemy is known as the AIDS virus. It is a virus that does not discriminate. Once someone is infected, the virus doesn't care who they are or what they do. To understand how the virus works, we have to look inside the body, at the immune system. It's made up of different types of cells, mainly in our blood. Together, these cells act as a wall against disease. On the right are destroyer cells. They kill foreign invaders. On the left are helper cells. They're the sentries, the first line of defense. When they detect a foreign invader, they send a signal to the destroyers. Once alerted, the destroyer cells attack the invaders and eliminate them. With AIDS, something else happens. The AIDS virus attacks the helper cell, gets inside it, and uses the helper cell as a virus factory. Although it can take years, the AIDS virus can destroy virtually all the helper cells. The body is now unable to defend itself. The immune system can't see or stop other new invaders. They go on to attack the body, causing diseases that kill. But fortunately, the AIDS virus can only spread from one person to the next in a very few ways: sex, blood, or from mother to child. Most often, it's through sex. For example, the AIDS virus can be found in the semen of infected men and the vaginal fluid of infected women. An infected man can pass it to a woman during sexual intercourse. And an infected woman can pass it to her sexual partner. And if an infected man has sexual intercourse with another man, he can pass the virus to his partner. Since the AIDS virus can be found in blood, blood can also spread the infection. For example, a blood transfusion. If the donor has the virus in his or her blood, the recipient will be infected too. Fortunately, medical science has developed a test that can detect signs of the virus in the blood, and where that test is used, the blood supply can be considered safe. But when people share contaminated needles to use drugs, they give each other what amounts to small blood transfusions. If someone's blood here has the AIDS virus in it, anyone who shares a needle with them can become infected. The same thing can happen when needles to inject medication or any other device used to cut the skin are used more than once. The needles or instruments must be sterilized between each use to prevent the AIDS virus from spreading this way. Finally, if a woman infected with the AIDS virus is pregnant, she can pass the virus on to her child. Not everyone with the virus is sick. Many feel healthy, even though they're infected. But of those diagnosed with AIDS, more than half have died. Some suffer Kaposi's sarcoma, a skin cancer. Others fall victim to pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. In some people, the AIDS virus directly attacks brain cells, causing a range of nervous system disorders and often dementia. Near the end, many simply waste away, unable to combat the frequent bouts of diarrhea and opportunistic infections. And in addition to their pain and suffering, many of these people are becoming outcasts, shunned by friends and neighbors, abandoned by loved ones. They find themselves alone. When they most need the kindness and compassion of a human face, others turn away. This is a tragic result of ignorance, unfounded fears that somehow people infected with the AIDS virus can spread the disease through normal everyday contact. They cannot. In fact, what you're about to see are the ways the AIDS virus is not spread. Once again, you can't get AIDS from a handshake, a sneeze, a hug, a swimming pool, food, toilets, insects. Since sex is the most common way the AIDS virus does spread, people can protect themselves. Some people may decide not to have sex. These people clearly have no risk of sexual infection. If you do have sex, the most effective protection is to stay with an uninfected partner exclusively. If not, people should limit their number of sexual partners. One would be safer than two, and so on. Do not have sex with prostitutes or other people who have many sex partners. And unless you're certain your partner isn't infected, a condom should always be used during sex, properly, every time from start to finish. IV drug users should stop injecting. But if not, at least they can avoid the virus if they use sterilized needles and never share them. But if reused, they and all needles and skin-cutting instruments should be sterilized before each use. Scientists around the world are mobilized to fight AIDS. One day, we hope to have a vaccine, and progress is being made in research to find a safe and effective treatment. But we cannot wait for a vaccine or a cure to stop the spread of AIDS. Even though people can, as individuals, protect themselves from infection, governments acting individually cannot stop the spread of AIDS. The AIDS virus is already spreading on every continent. It moves with no respect for geographic or man-made boundaries. The only way AIDS can be stopped in any country is for it to be stopped in all countries. This can only happen through unprecedented global cooperation. Here at the World Health Organization in Geneva, growing evidence of that cooperation can be seen every day. This is the nerve center for the global program against AIDS. Over 150 countries have set up national AIDS committees. Hundreds of international experts have been mobilized to help countries, rapidly leading to immediate action, national AIDS plans, and comprehensive national AIDS programs in countries all over the world. All this in less than a year.
Every country in the world needs its own strong and comprehensive national AIDS program. Every country must adapt the needs of AIDS prevention and control to its own culture, its own society, its own history. Nevertheless, it's essential that every country have such a strong program and that these programs be linked in an international network of unprecedented cooperation to fight AIDS.
The Global AIDS Plan is like a mosaic with components found around the world. Zambia, where nationwide blood donor testing is now a reality. Great Britain, which launched a nationwide AIDS education program through the media, including a mass mailing to every household. Japan, where confidential AIDS testing is now underway. San Francisco, the model for clinical care. Extensive support for the sick and dying, treated at the hospital, but living at home. The costs of care are kept low, with respect and dignity for patients kept high. Switzerland, where, in some parts of the country, IV drug users are supplied clean needles exchanged for used ones. And Uganda, where prostitutes and their truck driver customers now receive counseling and condoms. It was here at the United Nations that the urgency of a global response to the AIDS epidemic was uniquely recognized on October 20th, 1987. For the first time in history, a health issue is discussed on the floor of the General Assembly.
AIDS is one of those critical issues like nuclear weapons, global development, and environmental pollution, which affects the future of all peoples in all countries. It is, in many senses, a global combat.
Let us not underestimate the challenge before us. A worldwide effort will be required to stop AIDS. And yet we must win this global war.
Then, country representatives co-sponsoring a resolution endorsing the Global AIDS Plan.
The General Assembly should commend the way in which the virus is already being confronted, especially through the WHO Special Program on AIDS.
The Soviet Union highly appreciates the activities of WHO, which has been leading the fight against AIDS.
WHO's Global AIDS Program emphasizes prevention through education, the exchange of information, and the need for national program efforts developed in cooperation with WHO.
It is clear that the Special Program on AIDS will play a central role in any successful campaign to control the disease.
The United Kingdom greatly appreciates what WHO has achieved so far and fully supports their Special Program on AIDS.
A unanimous vote calls for governments which have not yet done so to establish national AIDS control programs in line with WHO's global strategy.
The call has now gone out to individuals, to nations, and to the family of nations. A call that says that we know how to stop AIDS, and that what is now required is that responsible actions take place at the individual and the national and the international level.
The AIDS virus is a frightening killer that attacks more than just the body. It is a mindless organism that can somehow release the forces of irrational fear to attack the spirit of kindness, respect, and compassion. But only if we let it separate us from the best we can be and from each other. Together we have begun the fight. Together we are stronger than any disease. And if we have the will, together we can control AIDS. A worldwide effort will stop it.